Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Tremble, and this is the Executive Bill Podcast. As you know, this show, along with all of our speaking, coaching, consulting services, are laser focused on helping organizations prepare high performing leaders from all backgrounds to successfully transition to and excel in VP and other senior executive level positions. And if you and your organization are interested and focused on developing a highly diverse and highly effective leadership teams, then one, you are in the right place. And two, I encourage you to reach out to us at gpsleadership.org or at team@gpsleadership.org today so we can help discuss how we can help you and your organization reach your leadership and culture elevation goals. Again, this podcast, The Executive Pill, is now top 5% most popular in the world, and it didn't happen by accident. It is because of you that the show is where it is today, and it will be because of you that the show continues to enjoy the success it has. And so if you've learned something from these conversations, if these conversations have weighed in on your heart, your soul, your spirit, all the good stuff, then please do us a favor and click the like button, click the subscribe button, make sure you click that share button. And also, please, as you are doing more and more today, I love it. Please do share your comments, your feedback, your questions in the comment section. All of that engagement helps to ensure that the algorithm continues to promote the show to more and more people, so more and more people can learn the phenomenal and be developed and grown by phenomenal advice and stories that we share on here. Finally, the book Relationships That Work, 4 Simple Steps to Building Intentional Connections in Business and Life, is now available on Amazon. And I would love to join you and your organization at your next event. So please reach out to us at alextremble.com to see when we can, because I'd love to join and speak at your next conference or event. Now, with no further ado, can I say today is a good day? See, today we have the amazing Miss Charmayne Beverly. See, Miss Charmayne began her career as an HR associate and progressively advanced, holding a variety of roles with increasing responsibility in the HR community, including focusing on employee engagement initiatives, talent management, employee relations, and recruitment. In 2013, that was just a oh, no, we're still there actually. In September of 2013, we're almost, no, when this airs, it will be 2014. Everyone, I'm going crazy today. So in September of 2013, Charmayne joined Old Republic Insurance as the VP for talent. And in that role, she's leading talent management, recruitment, learning and development, culture, employee relations, and diversity inclusion. Prior to joining ORI, Charmayne served as the vice president and senior HR partners, and was in that phenomenal role at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago. She also served as the director for talent management for the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago, and may I say, has the most awesome glasses on right now. So, madam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that introduction. I'm doing good.
Well, I the reason why I was kind of shifting around when I was talking about that September 2023 thing, because you were in a situation that many leaders, well, all leaders find themselves in, right? All leaders will find themselves in your position, the situation you're in. And that situation is being new to an organization and being new in a senior executive role. So my question, just to kick us off, is like, how do you walk into a new organization as an executive leader? What is the first things you do when you step into those roles?
I think for me, the very first thing that's top of mind is always being my authentic self. I'm going to laugh. I might joke a little bit appropriately. And that helps me let people have a window into who I am. I can step into a room and have a conversation, networking. I can work a room. I love doing that. I love connecting with people. So that would be my second thing, connecting with the people. So I'm leading a team now at Old Republic. So it's connecting with my team, which I connected with them prior to to starting at ORI through LinkedIn. They sent me nice messages, but it's sitting down. So 1, being my authentic self. 2, it's all about the people. And I'm going to connect with probably everyone in that organization. Not probably, I will, because that's what I did at the Federal Home Loan Bank. I connected with everybody, all employees within my 4 groups once a year. Because you have to connect with the people to understand the business and to help the business thrive.
Well, here's the thing, though. That all sounds good. You got to connect with the people, but you also got a job to get done, right? And especially when you're in larger organizations, how do you balance that the requirement to meet the people, as you're just talking about, and the work, right? And are they? I don't want to lead you. Are they one and the same?
They are, because it's the people that help me with the work that I have to accomplish. Because I believe going into an organization, you can't go in, especially in my role, you can't go in thinking that you know the most. And that while I know I'm going to make improvements wherever I go, you never want to go into a new job saying that and making the individuals who have been there for a while, oh, well, I'm here. You don't want to discount the work that talent has already put in place. And so I go in, I listen, and meeting with the people really helps me connect with the pulse of the culture, what employees really want, what needs to be in place, and then you marry those 2 together. And there's my job right there.
Well, so obviously I agree with you 100%. I just wanted to make sure that was very overtly stated for everyone who's listening, because I can't tell you how many organizations I've worked within, and I've worked with their leaders, especially their managers, who are like, look, I understand people are important. I do, I get it, but I don't have the time to work with the people. I gotta get this job done. And we try to we remind them that there is no job without the people. Like, you can't, especially as a manager, you are not literally doing that work. It's the people. So you have to engage them, have to spend time with them at the bare minimum.
Yes, I would agree.
So then I here's the thing. I was speaking at a conference recently, and it was very interesting because one of the people who came up to me afterwards, a really great individual. I enjoyed the conversation a great deal, and they're not an executive, but they're senior manager, very senior manager. And they told me, they say, Alex, look, we love everything you're talking about. I appreciate everything you're talking about, but the reality is, I'm a senior manager, and everyone else on my team, they're all senior managers. We don't need leadership development anymore. Like, we're leaders. We're already leaders. So I think what we need is maybe some more of that technical stuff on, like, managing like budgets and things like that. And it was interesting also because I had spoken to their executive before, and that person's executive was like, they're not ready for executive leadership. Like, we need them to grow as leaders. So it's interesting, that disconnect that can happen between senior managers and that next level, because sometimes you believe that, well, I am a leader, so I don't need any more leadership development skills because I'm already here, basically. Have you ever encountered that? And what are your reactions in those types of situations?
So I think once you get to a VP level or even above, and you're sitting on executive team, which currently I don't sit on an executive team, but I've had roles where I have worked with executive teams. I believe it's even more important at that level. Not the technical side. The technical side, because they've got, administrative assistants, they've got managers that are going to put together, say PowerPoint slides and different things like that. Depending on the environment that you're in, once you get to that VP executive role, you need that leadership training in how to be authentic, how to be vulnerable, how to be okay making a mistake, and letting your employees know, your direct reports, because you get to that level and you always think you have to be buttoned up. And I think that's what makes me a good leader is in environments where I've been in, people have seen my authentic self. I'll tell my team, I'll probably make mistakes way before you make mistakes. And I might repeat those mistakes. I'll tell my team, you have an expertise that I don't have. And I'm okay with that because I know what I'm really good at and what I'm not. Leaders that get up to that executive level, to me, I have seen where they think they need to be all buttoned up and perfect. And that's where they lose the pulse of their team. That's where trust comes into play. Because if an employee sees you, let's say not at your best, being vulnerable a little bit to a point, they lose that connection. Then that trust stops. So no matter what you do or say, because you haven't demonstrated this challenging side, this authentic side of you, that's where the trust breaks down. And then that carries over into your engagement surveys.
Look, I just can't right now. You said so much. So the first thing I want to ping in on is a concept that I enjoy talking about a great deal. One of my talks I give on how to gain positions of power and how to advance in your career. And one of the main things I say you have to be able to do is be confident in your incompetence. And when I say that, it just for those all, this is your first time hearing it, it's being confident. Like, hey, I'm very aware that I'm incompetent in a lot of areas. And because I'm aware and I've accepted it, I know that I can be vulnerable. I don't know. You know this better than me. You're an expert. You do this on a daily basis. What's your ideas? what do you think? I'd love to hear your perspective. And when you walk into environments like that, and you create environments like that, as you were saying, it's almost like you're setting yourself up for when you do fail or when something doesn't go right. People don't expect you to be perfect because you haven't acted as if you are perfect. If you try to act if you're, like you said, all buttoned up and you never get anything wrong, you're never wrong, then when something happens, people are like, well, you're the one who would say you knew everything. What are you talking?
Correct. I'll use the Federal Home Loan Bank as an example. I am not a metrics person. I can sit at the table and dissect metrics and be at that table and have a good conversation, but actually putting metrics together, you lose me. My brain doesn't really work like that. But coming to the Federal Home Loan Bank, they are heavy metrics driven. So my CHRO was very good at metrics. One of the generalists, younger in her career, was very good in metrics. And I struggled. I will be honest. The first metrics that I produced, numbers weren't adding up right. Like it was a horror show. But I was okay with that because I already knew that was my area of I won't say weakness, a challenge for me. But I always like learning and fostering my growth. And so one thing I did is I connected with that younger generalist because she was great in metrics. And she sat with me and we talked about metrics. We talked about how I put it together, how you start. And over time, my metrics grew, and I knew that I was at a great point when everybody on my team had to produce metrics. So it was a metrics on like our hiring, our diversity. Everyone on my team had to produce metrics, and I had to produce metrics in employee engagement. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of hard because employee engagement, it's a story, it changes. Mm-hmm. Produce the metrics. I kind of knew to myself, I was like, wow, this is really good. But the tests will be what my CHRO thinks. Sent it in. She came back with feedback, and the first line was, Charmayne, your metrics are the best. I think I still have that email because that just made my day, because she's a metrics person.
Yeah.
And I knew I just hit that, something that I always shied away from. And she challenged me, and we joke about it to this day. And now I feel comfortable. And so as a leader and much more experienced than this younger generalist HR business partner, I showed vulnerability to her. I tapped into an expertise that she has instead of her always tapping into my expertise. And that's another thing of a good leader. Tap into that younger talent. Just because you're older and have more experience doesn't mean you know more. And so I now have a skill set of metrics that I never had and always shied away from.
I laugh because of two things. One, when I was early on in my career, again, for those who know, I was asked to create and manage the Executive Leadership Development Program for the U.S. Department of the Interior when I was 23. And again, it makes absolutely no sense, but I was blessed to have that opportunity. And very quickly, I began saying this quote I used to always say it all the time, is there is no correlation between excellence and age. Just because someone's older doesn't mean they know, and just because they're younger doesn't mean that they know everything. There's no correlation there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You also then make me think of, that's a great point. So when I moved over in my career, I moved over from Department of Interior doing exec ed to move to the Department of National Park Service, U.S. Mm-hmm. National Park Service, to manage their National Youth Employment Programs. And when I moved, the thought was I was going to create a national leadership development program for these youth to try to funnel them into the federal government and develop leaders at that lower level, to go. Anyway, I was excited about it. I was ready for it. Mm-hmm. And when I got into that position, my manager said, actually, I'm going to have you work on policy. I want you to work on policy to create the foundation for these programs and these hiring initiatives and these authorities, and work with congressional language and whatnot. And I'll tell you, I am being a little vulnerable here. I just knew I'd be fired in like 6 months. Like I was not going to make it, because my weak area was writing. Like I was not a strong writer. Well, I've been told I wasn't a strong writer by my supervisor, former supervisor, for years. You're not good. You're not good. And so I just knew it wasn't going to work. 4 months into that new position, my leader sat me down and he was like, "Look, you're doing excellent in this job." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, like you're really good. Like the policy you've been drafting up is great." And I told him, I was like, "Look, I thought you were gonna fire me, man. Like I didn't think I was gonna make it here." And he said, "Alex, you know what?" He said, "I did my homework on you. Before you got here, I knew, like everyone I spoke to said you were great at leadership development. Like you could run and create a program, sleep, like that was something you were strong at. And so that's why I intentionally didn't put you in that role. I wanted you to learn something else." And I am forever grateful for him, because now, even in the role I do in my own business, yes, I do speak and we do coaching, but I also help organizations review their policies and so on and so forth and draft those things. Like that's a great skill to have. And so my question to you is, when do you look at your team and say, hey, look, I know David, I know Tanya, I know Charmayne, I know whoever it is, I know you're really great in this area, but I want to put you somewhere else uncomfortable because I want you to grow a different skill. How do you know when to have them grow a different skill versus let them just lean into that area that they're already great at?
I think I know it by how hungry they are and how inquisitive they are. And they may be a little nervous to go into that space, but I know they're ready for the space. They just need the support that if they do make a mistake, it's okay. So again, I'll go back to the bank because I have a little more experience there. It's only been 3 months at this new place, and I'll go back to that younger HR business partner. She started out as a coordinator. I met her. She was an intern at the bank, and she started out as a coordinator. I started mentoring her. Then she became a generalist and then HR business partner. Very smart, extremely bright. This was her first job in HR. She liked the employee relations side. So she shadowed me in some of the business groups that I had. And what that consisted of is we'd have meetings with leaders. We'd be on the calls together. And she would IM me for a couple of months, what about this? And check. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And we have very different styles. She is, and I'm a little more seasoned, so I'll challenge and go there. But she was first starting out. So, when you first, and then when I started out, you just want to be accommodating to the business. But as you grow in your career, my role is to actually challenge the business in a prospective manner. And so I decided I'm going to stop answering her IMs when we're on calls. And the only thing I'll say is, what do you think? And she paused. And half the time she had the right thought, but she was scared if she made a mistake. She never made a mistake. And it was all about confidence. And I would tell her, just because this person's an SVP, the only difference between you guys, SVP in front of it, in back of his name or in front, and older in his career. That doesn't make him that's the only difference. Probably a little more money. But that's the only difference. And so pushing her was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But she was inquisitive and wanted to go there, but also wanted to make sure she had the support and the backing. And I'm like, that's when you grow in this role. Because in the HR business partner role and HR role, our work is with people. You can't gauge people. I can't walk into a meeting and say, I'm going to deliver this news and X employee is going to act like this. It's usually the employees that you think are going to explode. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then the ones who are, you think, oh, I'm going to go in here and it's going to be easy, they're going to explode.
Yeah.
So you can't what I call triage people, because you never know. So you're going to make a mistake. And so that's my experience. I mean, where I'm at right now, I have a team. My generalist, she's phenomenal. And she takes on challenges, things that I bring to her that I know she can do and she's ready for.
Yeah.
And she just takes it and runs with it. That's because they're inquisitive.
It sounds like the inquisitive nature is extremely important for those who want to excel and or elevate themselves to those executive level positions. So there's inquisitiveness, the lack of fear. I won't even say lack of fear, because you can still be afraid of failing and still move. But you can't allow failure the fear of failure to stop you from making a move.
Or risk.
or
We could
risk.
use the word risk.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So we have inquisitiveness, not being afraid of risk. What is something else you believe that is needed if you want to excel to those executive level positions?
I think going in with your own thoughts of
Mm,
how to make a process, improve a process. Um, it's making those recommendations, looking at the big picture. What is needed? What are you trying to fix? And then having that strong voice at the table to make that recommendation.
mm,
Even if your recommendation is not accepted or implemented,
mhm,
it's people hearing your voice and your thought process.
mm.
Mhm,
That's huge.
mhm,
That's huge. Because you talked about one, the voice, right? So
mhm,
being brave enough to make your voice heard,
mhm,
um, and not being so upset or downtrodden if your recommendation isn't taken. Um,
right.
because one thing I'm always, again, another area that we love to work on at GPS Leadership Solutions is the political savvy piece. And we try
Mhm,
to make sure people understand that sometimes an idea doesn't float, not because it's not a great idea, but
mhm,
because of politics around it.
mhm,
The timing, the resources. Like there's a litany of reasons why an idea isn't adopted.
mhm,
um it has nothing to do with you. And
mhm,
so, like you said, not having the resilience to not falter just because your idea it wasn't adopted. But that last piece you said, which is communicating your thought process,
mhm.
that's huge. Can you say more on that?
So it's how you come to a solution and how you look at what you're trying to improve um, for an organization. It also helps people at that table um, know that you really know the business and you know how
Mm,
to talk that lingo with the business. The last thing the business wants when you're at the table is if you don't understand what they do. Now, I don't need to know
mhm,
deep dive what, one of my groups does, but I need to know the high level. What does an accounting for
yeah.
department do? What does audit do at high level? And then once you start learning what they do, you start to expand on that. And so it's that solution that you bring that you voice. It shows the business that you're thinking on their level and not from an HR lens all the time. And so that's what makes the business want HR at the table. And I've had the privilege of learning from multiple leaders how to be at the table and know the business. So I've just copied that.
I'm gonna put a thought on the table, and feel free to kick it off the table. What's called the what you make me think about is that at wherever you are within the organization, if you want to elevate to the next level, you must be able to think outside of your specific area, right?
Yep.
Because the higher you go up, the more the solutions will cross boundaries to different areas. So let's use HR. So
Mhm,
you may start off as an HR generalist and you don't need to know compensation, but maybe that next level you're going to need to know some general and some compensation, or some employee relations, or like
mhm,
every level. It's like even at the highest levels, if you're a chief marketing officer,
mhm,
um, yes, marketing, but you likely need to know something about all the other divisions, because one, you're partnering with them, you're likely serving them. And then in order to go where that next step is, that next step might be COO or CEO.
mhm,
Now you're going to oversee all of it anyway. So you need to understand that next level up, and across the playing field. Thoughts?
mhm. No, I agree with you. I think it's that forward thinking. It's thinking I'm in this role right now, but how do I have to think and perform to get to this next level?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's having the confidence that you can get to this next level. I was offered the role at Old Republic by an old manager that I worked for at another company years ago. He could have found anyone else to fill this role. And I asked him, why me? And he said, because you're good at what we need to accomplish. I trust you. You have good judgment. And you're going to challenge this place. And so all of that is because I operated in that way in my prior roles. Even when I was an HR assistant, yeah, I knew I was an assistant, but how could I be a really good assistant supporting 4 vice presidents and a CHRO? That's a lot. That's a lot. And that was like right out of college. And so again, I've carried that in roles that I've been in prior to coming to Old Republic.
I want to underscore a point you made. Again, this is something I'm always drilling. I talked about it at great length in my book, Relationships That Work. Um, you got the job not by just applying through some vacancy online. It was a connection. It was a relationship. Someone who knew you, someone who trusted you, someone who knew that you had the capability, the skills, someone you knew who was a manager 10 years ago. It is so important, everyone. I hope you're listening to this. It's so important to be intentional about not only building relationships, but maintaining those relationships, because you never know when someone may need you and they just hadn't thought about you. So how do you make sure you're in their brain to some degree? And so I want to ask you a backwards question. This is probably a harder question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. And you can always say, Alex, I don't want to answer it. And then you can talk about the Lakers. What is the worst advice that you've been given? I'll use myself as an example. Some of the worst advice I was given, 2 bits. One was just work hard. And we all know, everyone who listens to this show knows that is not the answer to moving up and within the organization. Working hard is a bare minimum. There's
Right.
so much there's so much extra that's needed to navigate those levels. But the other was just, being cutthroat. I was once given that advice, like, oh, you should undermine this person, do this and do that. And, maybe it would have worked in that situation, but that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not my character. That's not my brand. And implementing that advice, I think, would have done much more harm to me in the long run than the possible benefit it would have been in that situation. So have you ever received any advice that you were like, this is not good? Or you received advice and you tried it, you're like, oh, that didn't work out.
So I want to back up real quick to talk real quick about relationships. So in my whole career, I have never applied for a job through a job ad. I have always gotten jobs from prior managers I've worked with or my network. I value my network. When people send me LinkedIn requests, I'm not just letting anyone in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I value my network. It's how I came to the bank. It's how I was at my other job prior to that. And so I really pride in that. But to answer your question, the worst, probably bad feedback I received was always ask for your money, for a raise, for an increase.
Mm.
And I really believe, and I learned this from my father, that if you demonstrate that hard work, that initiative, being on time, having strong ethics, do what you say you're going to do, keep your promises. All of that will come. Be a resource in a company. Someone could come to me and say, oh, Charmayne, how do you do X? And it could not even be in my job. Never turn anyone away. Well, I don't know. That's not really what I do, but I'll help you figure it out. So it's hard for me to ask for money now. Probably some of my friends who are really good at it would disagree with me, but it's always worked for me, demonstrating, doing the hard work, and all those other things that I just laid out. And so I think that's how I've elevated in my career. I've never asked. I've never asked. So yeah, that was bad advice for me because that's not really my personality. I want to demonstrate, and I want someone to come to me to say, oh, I've seen X, Y, and Z. We're taking you there. Yeah.
You and I are similar in so many different ways. So one, like you, I've never got a job via an application. And even the applications I did submit were a formality, right?
Yeah,
the job was already mine.
Exactly.
And then to your second point, I learned, I learned to never ask for money, but what did I need to do to get the money?
Right.
So if I had to, if I want to raise hey, supervisor, again, I was like, hey, I would like to get to this next level. What would I need to do? What skills would I need to have? What experience would I need to have? So at least I had a guiding star as to where to dedicate my energy and my effort. Is that something you think about too?
Yeah, it definitely is something, again, gained from my father. Not to ask. The asking is in the doing and demonstrating and being consistent. I know another colleague like that who's risen through the bank, and she's a leader at Federal Home Loan Bank. She's never asked for more money. It has just come. They sought after her to solve a problem. Even when she was sought after and we're moving you from here to here, okay. Never asked. Could have asked, but then that just came to her. And even when she found out she got the increase, oh, okay. Well, thanks. That's great. Didn't expect it. It's because of her behaviors, how she demonstrated herself, that money then comes to you. Yeah.
Look, time goes way too fast when you're talking to someone awesome.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, because when you're talking to someone not awesome, probably time doesn't go fast enough. Let me be safe before I get myself in trouble. Everyone has awesomeness inside of them. I will say
yes,
that.
They do. Yes, they do.
Some people need to be more intentional about displaying that awesomeness. That's what I'll say.
Right. That's a polite way to say that.
Look, I know you've got to jump off because I think you have to jump on the line with Elon Musk or something like that. Let's call. Is there any final thoughts, ideas, anything I could share with our audience before we wrap up?
As I think about where my journey, my career has been, I would say always do your best. It may not be perfect, but the effort, I think, is good. I think it's also good in especially in today's career, how things are going. You're going to go up, be in great positions, go backwards as I did in my career. And that's okay because you're going to learn different things. I think that you have to really enjoy what you do. You have to enjoy who you work with, but you also have to be out of your comfort zone. So I didn't have to leave the bank. The bank fought very hard to keep me. But I knew I was comfortable. And I wanted to join this new organization, again, because the person I was going to be reporting to is a phenomenal leader. Mm-hmm. The leader I left at the bank is a phenomenal leader. And so I had to get uncomfortable. I had great relationships at the bank, and I still have those relationships. But for me, development-wise, I had to move forward and to test what I'm maybe a little nervous to do. Mm-hmm. But you have to keep those connections. You have to keep those connections.
Thank you.
Always do your best.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't want to add anything else to it. I will just point out that it's very interesting that when you do your best, I think generally speaking, you will outperform others.
Correct.
Just doing your best. Just do your best.
Just do your best.
Again, thank you so much, Charmayne, for hanging out with us today, because you've shared so much, not only with the audience, but I appreciate, because I've taken so much for myself. And those of you who are listening today, make sure you don't just listen. Do something. Take action. Implement. Look, as she was talking about, try something. Just try it. There's a whole thing about where you are. Oh, this idea about where you are is actually where you were meant to be. Wherever you are is where you're meant to be. When I say that, it means that wherever you are right now is due to what you've been doing, the actions you've been taking, the mindset you have. You are where you are by design, and which it means that you can redesign it. You can think differently. You can take different actions and take you in a completely different direction, and you can accomplish so much more of whatever you define as success by simply taking some actions, because you will learn, you will grow. Look, I love to join any of you at your next event. So please, if you want to bring me in to come speak at your next event, it's alextremble.com. I encourage you to read my most recent book, Relationships That Work. I encourage you to continually follow this phenomenal leader, Miss Charmayne, because she is slaying in her industry. And you know where I'm going now. If you found anything of value today, don't just look back, reach back. If something set on your heart and made you feel a type of way, I promise you that you sharing it with your friend, your colleague, your family member, your former supervisor, your mentor, sharing this with someone will also provide positive in their life as well. So please don't just keep this to yourself. Share it. Click the like, click the subscribe, comment. Share this content so it can sit on someone else's heart just as it is yours. And as always, I encourage you to stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.